Hello there, and how are we doing there, Beatstar players? This is iRoaster505 coming back with you with another hard tier list. Today, we're going to be discussing the Tour Pass seasons from seasons 31 to 40. Knowing how season 44 is going on right now, and some of these hards are now in the boxes in the shop, I think it's a good time as ever to start ranking them. So, without further ado, let's begin. As always, there's some ground rules to cover first. I will only be talking about Tour Pass songs from seasons 31 to 40, and they'll be scaled on a scale of 1 star to 6 star, with 1 being the easiest and 6 being the hardest. And tier lists are based upon a player clearing status, DPing status, and of course, my opinion. Arrows again indicate whether a song is close to moving up or down a tier. And of course, hearts only and no promotional songs like Jingle Jam. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So as opposed to seasons 21 to 30, where there were 33 hards, this time seasons 31 to 40 has a total of 31, with seasons 32 and 40 having an extra hard in the 531 formula, but unfortunately season 34 being the one to subtract from that. That was not a good time to be a Beatstar player, I'll tell you that. So without further ado, presenting the Beatstar hard tier list for seasons 31 to 40. Starting off with the 1 stars over here, these should be pretty obvious why they're in the 1 star tier. Let You Love Me, not to be confused with Let Me Love You by Mario. It's a pretty easy pop hard, and Rita Ora's second song in the game, which honestly is really nice. I really think the final stage here does have a really good challenge over here, which is why it's in the high 1 star league, because it can throw you off from time to time. Snooze, as opposing to the other song I just talked about, is a very boring chart because all it just does here is a pretty slow chart, with only the final stage being a very awkward challenge. But it's not enough to pull it out of the 1 star league because once you get the awkward pattern down, it's very, very easy to re-DP the next couple times. And lastly, Sunny Day is a pretty fun song with a pretty interesting chart. But the reason why it's in the 1 star as opposed to 2 stars is because the final stage is super repetitive. I feel like if they did a different cut over here, it could have been the 2 star lead, but 1 star is pretty much where it lands. Next up, we have the 2 star league, and oh my gosh, I did not expect this many songs in the 2 star league. 9 songs in this tier. Let's start off with the neutral ones. Drop It Like It's Hot is a really good rap hard with a really good deluxe hard if you haven't played it yet. The turning kind of reminds me a bit of Black and Yellow, and it has the pretty good awkward timing to it, but it is pretty easy when you get it done the first time. Money for Nothing's a pretty straightforward rock hard with not that much challenge until the end, where it does actually do a little bit of a solo rendition, but that's about it. Now let's get to the first hards that actually are close to dropping. Deep Cuts and Faster Car. Deep Cuts is on the lower end of the 2 star league because the challenge here is mostly quiet until the final stage where they add a triplet and more of the riffs come in at you when you're not looking. And Faster Car is pretty similar to the Chainsmokers Riptide hard, where it's apparently pretty easy for a pop hard. The only thing saving it from the 1 star league is the ending there with all the holds and more the double taps. And as expected, the 2 star has the most that actually has more songs to rise than decrease. Good For You and Murder on the Dance Floor are pop hards that do actually have themselves a really good chart and good songs for that matter. But the problem here is that why they're stuck in the 2 stars because it's very synced early, which is pretty easy to actually capture them flying notes if you're not careful. How Does It Feel is a pretty good undercharted rap hard, and I do think this is actually a really good song. But again, the syncing is pretty early too, and the patterns here are pretty straightforward, so you're not going to have much trouble here as opposed to something that what's coming up. The Kids Are Alright is a pretty good alternate rock hard, and Karma is a pretty good heavy metal hard, but two of them are pretty polar opposites. With Karma, most of the challenge comes to the end, which does raise it a bit above the 2 star line, and the Kids Are Alright, the challenge is sprinkled out through the charts, but not much forwarding challenge coming in here. Even the final stage is pretty straightforward for the most part. Now we get to 3 star tier, and surprisingly, just like the last video of the seasons 21 to 30, this one has the exact same amount of songs in the tier, 9 songs. Let's start off with the lower batches here. Let's Play, in my opinion, is a low 3 star. It's a pretty easy challenge to the final stage where it starts jumping at you with all of the stats here and the swings, which do actually make the chart pull itself up. Faith, I'm really surprised it puts itself in the 3 star here. But all this time with the finals here and the doubles, it really does have you thinking you have to keep going and get into the rhythm in order to get through it. I do think the 3 stars here have a really great variety of songs here. Brutal, as expected, is a pretty brutal stacking chart, which does slow down at the very much at the end, which could throw you off. Counting Stars is a good example of how to actually incorporate swipes inside here without being gimmicky or artificial. Boom is harder than How Does It Feel because it does have more of the overcharting when it comes to rapping and does a really good job as an over 500 note hard. And I know here is really good here with actually trying to be really interesting with only a sub 300 count for a hard. Now let's talk about the rises here because this one's a pretty tricky one to think about. Crystal's in a high 3-star tier because most of the challenge comes in at the final stage here where all the stacking comes involved in jumping. It's not hard enough to jump into the 4-star tier, but it is really interesting how it jumps up at the very last minute. Similarly, Safari Song is a really good rock hard with the final stage reminding me a bit of Two Princes and Give It Away with the gallops and of course the stacking here. It doesn't pull itself right into the 4-star like something like Are You Gonna Go My Way because the challenge in the first 4 stages are pretty straightforward as expected. And finally, Walk This Way, one of my favorite hards in the entire game in the rap genre territory. You'd be surprised why this isn't in the 4-star, because despite the final stages actually showing some really good, perfect rapping from Run DMC, the charting is actually pretty straightforward in the first 3 stages that do barely miss the mark from the 4-star tier. But if you think this is a 4-star, like a low 4-star, I definitely understand. Speaking of which, welcome to the 4-star tier. Pretty less than something expected than last time, with 7 songs landing in the 4-star tier. Most of them are pretty straightforward here, like Just Can't Get Enough's a really good pop chart with actually really fun swings and jumping around. Teenage Kicks and A Dream of a Night in Mexico are pretty interesting hards to think about, which does actually lead you on your feet towards the solo or the percussion. All Night is a really fun hard here with actually taking inspiration from something like Archangel, and Let Ooh Woo Go, as expected. Despite the song being weird, it actually has a really fun chart that's very upbeat and happy. And now let's talk about the ones going up and down. The lowest in this tier is Bizarre Love Triangle. I always find this weird that I find this one harder than something like Crystal, because when you get down to it, the only weird thing of the blockage in this one is the final stage. You really have to trust your gut in order to actually be perfectly singed when actually trying to jump into the micros. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of difficult to figure out the final stage. And in Sata Dance, which is pretty much a weird name or something, is the highest in the 4-star tier. This one's on the verge of the 4 to 5-star because the challenge here is pretty awkward when you think about it. I find it like an easier War Machine where the pattern's awkward and uncharted, but does a really good job pulling itself up with the fun patterns. And now we have the 5-star. This is pretty low compared to the last time, but we only have 3 songs in this tier. It's pretty weird, but let's take a look, shall we? Getting Hot is the second song from Knock 2 in this game. It thinks that it's pretty much really hard to figure it out in the final stage, but I think it's probably in the lower 5-star tier because unlike Dash Star, where it pulls the energy from the very start, the energy mostly comes in at the final stage when it comes to all of the tapping and the micros for that matter. I find it definitely harder than something like Swayback in terms of timing, but probably not enough for the 6-star. Next up, we have Egos. Ugh, Egos. Egos is pretty strange to me. It's a pretty weirdly charted rap hard, with actually taking a bit of inspiration from something like Problems or Panda in terms of actually trying to have some kind of awkward timing. I do think maybe this is close to dropping later on if people actually do know how to figure out this pattern, but as it is, I can't really find much to say about it other than you really better be ready for the timing. And lastly, we have How We Win, a Monster Cat song. Yippee. How We Win is pretty interesting. I really like the charting in this one, how it's actually supposed to lead you in towards a big success here. It goes easy at you on first, but then the 4th stage comes in here with all of this escalation pointing. Then the final stage pulls a go on you, and all these micros are jumping in your face. It's actually really fun when you think about it. While pretty interesting and pretty hard for that matter, I don't think it's as hard as something as we talked about last time, like Play or Purge the Poison. So I guess that's it. That's all the tour pass hards from seasons 31 to 40. With 31 songs, I was really impressed that there was no 6-star outlier. It's really sad, but I really think that. Wait, hold on. I'm noticing that there's one last song we haven't talked about. What song's in the 6-star tier? Oh, I forgot. For those who don't know, during the timing of seasons 31 to 40, more songs were actually removed from this game. And one of the songs happened to be Panda, which people can actually clarify are one of the hardest songs of the entire game. Probably not anymore, but definitely one of. It's really sad to see Panda go because it is a really interesting chart when it comes down to it. Some pro players think it's a guilty pleasure for being so bad it's good or so awkwardly timed that it's actually really fun. But for all those players who have actually played this chart in DP, my apologies in advance for all of that being for nothing. I do think it does land its place in Beatstar history for being one of the most confusing and inconsistent charts in the game, but also one that I can never forget. So thanks for all you do. Anyway, so that's it for my Beatstar Heart tier list from seasons 31 to 40. Yeah, so a pretty mixed variety overall, with most of the songs this season being in the 2 to 3 star, as opposed to seasons 21 to 30 being more tougher and leaning towards the 4 star. Going forward, I hope Beatstar can actually ramp up more difficulty in the hards, because they're seeming to do that more and more in most seasons here. We do get the occasional 5 stars once in a while, but I'm honestly hoping that we still get more of the 4 or 5 star variety going forward. Like I said, I do like easy hards as long as they're fun, which is most of the list right here. But honestly, I do actually want a bit more challenging hards when you think about it. And with that, we reach the end of this tier list. Special thanks again goes to the inspiration Ben Matson for helping me make this tier list. And of course, a big shout out to the Beatstar Discord community for the Beatstar Handbook for helping me remember the seasons 31 to 40. Geez, 40 seasons in, and we are still going. This is a big thing for Beatstar. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this video. Might be thinking about making a old rendition Beatstar Heart tier list for seasons 1 to 20 in the future, but we'll see. So thanks y'all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.